Since I was a child, I heard footsteps in the house. They were never loud or intrusive, just faint enough to make me question whether I was imagining them. Sometimes they echoed in the upstairs hallway. Other times they crept downstairs in the living room, and occasionally they lingered on the stairs. But they were always just out of reach, as if whoever or whatever was making them didn't want me to see them. My parents always told me it was just the wood settling. The house was old, built in the early 1900s, and old houses creak. It made sense, and because I had no reason to doubt them, I believed it. For years, I accepted their explanation, even as the footsteps became a constant presence in my life. They were like a background noise, something I learned to live with, like the ticking of a clock or the hum of the refrigerator. But deep down, I always wondered. The footsteps didn't sound like creaking wood. They had a rhythm, a purpose. They sounded like someone walking, slow, deliberate, and always just out of sight. The house itself was a sprawling, two-story Victorian with a history as old as the town itself. It had been in my family for generations, passed down from my great-grandparents to my grandparents and then to my parents. It was a beautiful house, with intricate woodwork, stained glass windows, and a wraparound porch that creaked with every step. But it was also a house full of secrets. The walls seemed to whisper when the wind blew, and the floors groaned under the weight of time. My room was on the second floor, right next to the staircase that led downstairs. It was a small room, with a slanted ceiling and a single window that looked out over the backyard. I spent most of my childhood in that room, reading books, drawing pictures, and listening to the footsteps that seemed to follow me wherever I went. My parents' room was across the hall, and the rest of the second floor was mostly unused. There was a small office with a desk and a couple of cabinets, and a storage room filled with old boxes and forgotten furniture. The attic was above that, accessible only by a narrow staircase that led up from the office. I rarely went up there. It was dark, dusty, and filled with the remnants of my family's past. I was 15 when everything changed. It was a Saturday, and my parents had left for the weekend to visit relatives. I was home alone, enjoying the quiet. It was the middle of the afternoon, broad daylight, and there was nothing eerie about the house. No strange noises, no flickering lights, no reason to feel uneasy. I was in my room reading a book when I decided to grab something from the kitchen. I opened my door and stepped into the hallway, and froze. Footsteps, not somewhere in the house, not downstairs, not in the hallway. They were coming from directly above me, on the stairs leading to the second floor. Slow, heavy, deliberate, my pulse skyrocketed. Instinctively, I looked up. There was someone, a shadowy figure, just barely visible in the dim light, was walking up the stairs. Not in a rush, not hesitating, just moving. And that's when my rational mind kicked in. That couldn't be possible. The second floor wasn't an abandoned attic or an unfinished space. It was furnished. A desk, a couple of cabinets, some old storage boxes, but there was no way out. No window someone could escape through. Nowhere to hide. For a few seconds, I couldn't move. My entire body locked up. Then the fear hit. I bolted downstairs to the kitchen, yanked open a drawer, and grabbed the largest knife I could find. Every instinct in me screamed that this was a terrible idea. If there was an intruder, I should be running out of the house, not back up the stairs. But I had to know. With the knife clenched tightly in my hand, I made my way back up, slowly, one step at a time. The house was dead silent. I reached the second floor, heart pounding so hard it felt like my ribs would crack. And then I saw it. Nothing. No one. The room looked exactly as it always had. Desk, cabinets, boxes. No mess, no open doors, no signs that anyone had been there. I checked everything. I opened the cabinets, looked behind the desk, even moved the boxes. Nothing. There was no possible way anyone could have been here, let alone disappeared without a trace. It was impossible. I stood there for a long time listening, waiting for something, anything to happen, but all I heard was silence. And then I realized something that sent a cold shiver down my spine. Since that day, I haven't heard the footsteps again. Not on the stairs, not in the hallway, not anywhere in the house. And that scares me even more, because that means it always knew I could hear it. And now it doesn't want me to? In the days that followed, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching me. The house felt different, heavier, darker, as if the walls themselves were closing in. I tried to convince myself that it was all in my that the footsteps had been nothing more than my imagination. But deep down I knew better. I decided to investigate. I started by asking my parents about the house's history. They told me what they knew, that it had been in the family for generations, that it was built by my great-grandfather, a wealthy businessman who had made his fortune in the lumber industry. But they didn't know much beyond that. I turned to the internet, searching for any information I could find about the house or the land it was built on. I discovered that the property had once been part of a larger estate, owned by a family who had mysteriously disappeared in the early 1900s. The house had been abandoned for years before my great-grandfather bought it and restored it to its former glory. I also found a few old newspaper articles about strange occurrences in the area, reports of ghostly figures, unexplained noises, and even a few disappearances. But there was nothing concrete, nothing that could explain what I had seen. One night, unable to sleep, I decided to explore the attic. I had always avoided it, but now I felt drawn to it, as if it held the answers I was looking for. I grabbed a flashlight and made my way up the narrow staircase. The air was thick with dust and the floorboards creaked under my weight. The attic was filled with old furniture, boxes, and forgotten belongings. It felt like stepping into another world. I started going through the boxes, looking for anything that might shed light on the house's history. I found old photographs, letters, and documents, but nothing that stood out. Then in the corner of the attic, I found a small locked trunk. It was old and weathered, with intricate carvings on the lid. I tried to open it, but it was locked tight. I searched the attic for a key, but found nothing. Frustrated, I decided to take the trunk back to my room. The next day, I searched the house for the key to the trunk. I looked in every drawer, every cabinet, every nook and cranny. Finally, I found it, hidden in a small compartment in the desk in the office. I unlocked the trunk and opened it. Inside, I found a collection of old journals written by my great-grandfather. I started reading them, and what I discovered sent chills down my spine. The journals detailed strange occurrences in the house: footsteps, shadowy figures, and unexplained noises. My great-grandfather had experienced the same things I had. He had tried to investigate, but had never found any answers. In one of the last entries, he wrote, "I don't know what it is, but it's here. It watches me. It listens, and it knows I can hear it." Since that day, the house has been silent. The footsteps are gone, and the shadowy figure has disappeared. But I can't shake the feeling that it's still here, watching, waiting. I don't know what it is or what it wants, but I know one thing for certain: it's not done with me, and I'm not sure I want to find out what it's planning next.